Hello everyone and welcome along to your latest edition of the Sunday Session TII podcast. My name is Craig Dennett and I'm your host this evening, and we're joined by one of our regular contributors, JB. How are you doing, JB?
Yeah, good. Yeah, really good. Start to see some Rangers content come out on Rangers TV. So the season's getting closer. So yeah, they're all good.
I know, absolutely. Been glued to the Rangers TV content over the past couple of days as the team have been out in Germany. And we're also joined tonight, making his debut on the TII podcast, John Walker. How you doing, John?
Aye, good mate. Same with JB. Very excited now. I mean, I say now the season's starting. I don't feel like football's stopped at any point. It feels like it's just a continuous loop of football, and it's been that way since like 2017. It's draining, but it's what we do, right?
Absolutely, but I think I feel like the last couple of weeks I've been desperate for Rangers to get back and everything. Even though I enjoy watching the Champions League, I enjoy watching the English Premier League, etc. But it's all about Rangers, mainly for me. So I'm happy to see they're about a week and a half now away from the Alan McGregor testimonial, and that can't come quickly enough for me, if I'm honest. There's plenty to talk about as we go through tonight. We'll touch on, obviously, Cyriel Dessers officially signed on the dotted line earlier this week. €5 million plus €1.5 million sign-on, add-ons on there. So we'll talk about that and get the guys' opinions. We'll talk about Jose Cifuentes, who is still running on. It might be the longest transfer saga we've had for quite a while at Rangers. I don't even know if it can be called a saga quite yet, but that one's still ongoing, although there were some reports overnight that a fee might well have been agreed. We'll speak about Glenn Kamara and reported interest from Besiktas, and then we'll talk about Michael Beale's comments from today, as well as what we've seen come out of the German pre-season camp so far, particularly around the fitness of players like Connor Goldson, Tom Lawrence, Kamara Roof. We saw Kamara Roof scoring a goal on the training pitch and bouncing straight back up. That was a novelty in itself. But we'll touch on all of that as we go through the podcast. I see there's plenty of people in the comment section already. Please do let us know your thoughts on everything we're talking about, everything Rangers, and we'll bring up as many as we can to discuss during the podcast. JB, I'm going to start with yourself. Cyriel Dessers signed on Thursday night. It was announced. It feels like it's been quite a long running one. There's been times where we thought it's guaranteed. There's been times where we thought it's got stopped in its tracks and it's not going to happen. Michael Beale seemed very happy to get this one over the line. I think Dessers has been our number one striker target this summer. Is it one you're happy with?
No, yeah, most definitely. As you say, it has been a wee bit of a saga, hasn't it? I think the deal was on, the deal was off, and back into a couple of times. But no, it's definitely one I think we've needed. I think Rangers fans over the last few years, including myself, we've just been conditioned to Alfredo Morelos as the only type of striker. So I think with the big man coming in, he seems to have a lot more to his game. Obviously, Morelos will be remembered fondly for what he'd done in years gone by. Obviously, not so much the last 12, 18 months or so, but no, been really impressed with him. I think he speaks really well. I think it's obviously the RTV interviews. Sometimes you've got to take with a pinch of salt. But I've listened to a few previous interviews prior to him joining. In terms of when he'd been at other clubs and stuff, he always thought he speaks quite well. So he's obviously either been very well media trained or he just absolutely loves it. I think in terms of what he's going to bring to us, I think the fact he's had that, I'm pleased he had that the wee bit of time at Feyenoord, so he can play under that crowd expectation. And looking at the way he celebrates after he scores, he definitely seems to want to interact with the fans and get right in the thick of it. So, but no, if somebody had said to me at the start of the window, you're going to sign a player who's got experience of playing in Belgium, Holland, Serie A, works hard for the team, then it would have been all thumbs up for me. Just prior to the pod, I was just having a quick look at his goal scoring records through seasons as well. And he scored 18 plus goals in 4 seasons throughout his career so far. So if you think about where we've been short over the last, you'd probably say 10 years, it's just been that out and out striker who's going to bang them in for us. So, and he likes to put a hell of a shift in as well, which I think is why the fans take to him so much. So yeah, one I'm definitely looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, John, I don't know if you had the chance to see much of the content from Cyriel Dessers in terms of interviews and stuff like that. But he comes across as a very affable guy, a very happy guy, which is a bit of a novelty for our strikers in recent years. We've not quite had that smiling striker for a while. He's a lot of people made their judgments pretty early doors by looking at stats, by looking at heat maps, all that sort of stuff. Since he's signed, there seems to be a wee bit of a change in tone. People seem a bit more positive about it, a bit more upbeat, a bit more looking forward to seeing what he can do for us. What are your expectations for Cyriel Dessers this season? JB mentioned he scored 18 plus goals in, I think, 4 seasons so far in his career. It's been a long time since we've had a striker score 20 plus in a league season.
Yeah, I think watching him now, I watched a lot of his goals for the Conference League for Feyenoord a couple of years ago, and I think the best way, honestly, I think he's like kind of taking the best bits of what Morelos was good at, occupying defenders, being strong, holding the ball up, and he's got a little bit of Cholak about him, where in front of goal I feel he's way more composed than Morelos ever was. When you watch some of Morelos' goals back, and then you think of some of the misses, you're like, technically he just seemed like such a poor finisher, but then would pull the Porto half volley out the bag, and you just don't know where it comes from. I feel like this Dessers, he's played in Holland, right? He's played in Belgium. His technique is going to be top. I just think we're going to get something really special. It's one of these ones where, as long as he hits the ground running, because momentum, confidence, and everything, because we've joked about it in the group chat, our fans can turn on you. We're demanding. I know he's probably the most handsome striker we've ever had at the club, but he's going to need to deliver goals quickly. I did like the fact that he was saying how much he can't wait to play in front of Ibrox, because he loves that attention of big crowds on him at his home. And that is the one thing when you sign people that you don't know too much about other than YouTube clips, you don't know how they're going to deal with that pressure. But he just seems like somebody that's so relaxed all the time. Like that is like what you were saying, JB. That's what came across in the interview. He said he studied law for 3 years. That probably explains why he's so well spoken all the time. But it just seems like a really, like, almost, for all that Morelos was a fan favourite, it was because the way he played on the pitch. And I think Dessers has already kind of won people over the way he's talking off the pitch. So as long as he does his job, because his job, regardless of that, is to score goals, it's not to do good interviews for Rangers TV. But he kept saying in his interview, I want to score goals, I want to score goals, I want to score goals. That's a mentality of a Rangers striker that you need. This is probably the most exciting signing I think we've made in ages. I'm looking forward to it. I just hope everything like pure smooth sailing to start with.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well, and it'll be interesting to see. He's obviously just in the door. He's away to Germany with the team. He'll be getting himself familiar with how Michael Beale wants him to play, how he'll fit into the squad. I think, John, there'll be a few people contesting your statement there on whether he's the most handsome striker we've signed. There's a few fans of Antonio Cholak on the podcast as well, so it's fair competition, I think.
Our team is so handsome now, man. This is a new generation of Rangers. It's the most handsome team. Cantwell and Hadji for the best hair. It's brilliant.
Absolutely. I wasn't even bringing Cantwell into the discussion, but you've brought that in there. JB, Rangers released the getting to know interview with Cyriel Dessers earlier on today. John mentioned a few points from it. Interesting to know what you made of the video, and was there anything that he said that stuck out for you? I think a couple of the points John said that stuck out for me around if he studied law for 2 years or 3 years. He was a Chelsea fan growing up, which I found really interesting. And he picked goals as his one word to describe his style, which I was a big fan of.
Yeah, I think you've nailed all the points there, haven't you? In terms of what we want to hear from a Rangers striker. I think John touched on it there. We want a striker that is hungry to score goals. Funny enough, again, similar to John, when I was watching the goals back in terms of goals he scored before, and again, can't help myself but do it. Would Morelos have scored that? But what I find myself saying to myself, would Morelos have been in that position? So he likes to score the poachers, which you quite like. I just think he comes across in the interview today as well. Just echoed that. He just comes across as a real nice guy who just looks like he can't wait to get started. So I think if he can take that type of mentality into the group, you hear quite a lot, and I know Cantwell said it again today in one of the interviews, that it's a real good group of lads that we've got. So when you bring somebody in with that level of confidence and that willingness to do well, I think it can only rub off on everyone. I think, again, I know we'll go into a wee bit more depth in the training videos yesterday. There just seems to be as if everyone just looks up for it. it looks like there's a bit of a spark. Now, again, they wouldn't put these training videos out if everyone was walking around looking miserable, but there just seems to be as if everyone there looks, I don't know whether it's just because everyone just looks so physical. Half the squad's 6'2" plus, and you can just see that the weak guys cutting about just look a little bit lost. I know we'll get to Alex Lowry getting checked the other week by Dal, but it's almost like everyone seems to be a bit of a man mountain, which again, given the opposition we caught to domestically and internationally, I don't think that'll do us any harm at all. But no, Dessers is definitely. I just want to see him play now. I want to see a couple of training videos. A few years ago, I think it was under Warburton, they released a load of training videos and they did shooting drills. And I remember watching Josh Windass thinking he's getting 25, 30 goals a season. He was smashing them in. And then I think we sold him 2 weeks later. And obviously that must have been under Gerrard then. But a couple of training videos, Mr. Rangers admin, in terms of shooting drills, and I'll be happy. But yeah, no, early signs look good.
Yeah, and there's some positivity in the comments as well around this one. Hugo Bayer says Dessers is a huge upgrade on Morelos. Callum C says, hope Dessers can shut us all up and score plenty. And then Cubby Cubster comes in and just some of the comments that were made there. What I like about the new signings, they're all big, physical, strong-looking players. What we need, let's hope they hit the ground running. John, I think everyone's kind of noticed that we've not signed someone under 6 foot yet, and we've made 6 signings, sorry. Is that something that you are happy to see, and how do you think that will impact our style of play?
I think one of the things I'd noticed, and I'd felt this way about Celtic under Postecoglou the whole time he'd been in, was that Celtic's biggest weakness was defending set plays. And see, when I started seeing, before he went to Spurs, I started seeing the signings we were making, the type of player. We'd already seen Suter scoring the last Old Firm of the season. We'd already seen 2 set pieces at Parkhead before that. I was looking at it and going, like, these fine margins. I remember Hollander at Ibrox and Postecoglou's first Old Firm. I was looking at it going, we are going to absolutely leather them if we just kick corners. That's all we need to do. That's now changed. The only positive is Brendan Rodgers wasn't much better with his set play record and at Leicester. So I think it was a big thing under Gerrard, goals for set plays. People like Golds, man, if Goldson can return even 1 and 2 headers, he's going to end up with 15 goals a season. So I do think that physical thing has been something that we've definitely wanted. How those players then transmit into what Beale plays football like, because you've got players like Raskin and Cantwell who, as far as I'm concerned, are the first names on that team sheet, the way we are going to be playing. It's just how you get that blend right. It's like, could Dow be the dirty enforcer for those two to go and do what they need to do, and Dessers then he'll bully centre halves. So it's obviously been a deliberate thing. It's just how it now goes into this game model going forward, and that's, I think they said that's what they're now moving into next week into training, is to try and get those ideas into the bigger group, because I know they talked about the togetherness looking like that. You're going to need that when you've got so many new faces coming into the club, and Beale is still, as a manager, prior to getting a full pre-season. So we already seen changes under Beale. It'll be good to see when he's actually had the pre-season and time to actually implement his game model. He's somebody that I've always been really, really obsessed with through doing my coaching license. He did loads of stuff with the SFA. Just a really interesting guy. So it'll be really good to see now that he's got his full pre-season with Rangers, because you've seen the way QPR started the season under him as well. I think it's going to be really exciting. This is going to be one of these clips that in 4 months' time, if we don't start well, I'm getting shared everywhere and getting laughed at by everyone. But I'm absolutely buzzing now, man.
Yeah, and our fellow podder Ross agrees with you. He says John is spot on. Rangers' success against Celtic in the last couple of years has been when they have been extremely physical and aggressive. Look at Lundstrom in the semi-final at Hampden last year. I think Bassey in that same game as well was an absolute standout from a physicality perspective. JB, Dessers obviously a striker in the door. It's what we've been crying out for. People are getting a bit on edge about the fact we didn't have one yet. There's a few rumours that we're still talking to Feyenoord about Danilo. Are you expecting another striker to come in before the window shuts?
I think the next one will probably go to the wire. I think it'll probably depend on how the first few weeks start. I know there was a lot of conversation. It was going to be Dessers or Danilo, and then reports have then come out to say that we're still interested in Danilo. It wouldn't surprise me if conversations have been had with agents and stuff, and the player seems keen to come. So it might just be a case of, right, let's see how the first few weeks go in training. Let's see what Sholak looks like. Let's see how Roof reacts to the pre-season training. I mean, he's obviously one that we all know. He's got all the ability in the world. If we can get him back fit and playing, but it is if we can get him back fit and playing. So I think that one will go to a couple will go to the wire. As much as we know that we need to be ahead of the game because of the Champions League qualifiers. I'd have been really worried if we hadn't brought a Dessers type in, because otherwise you're going to start looking at the likes of Seema, Sakala, Sholak, Roof to go into the Champions League with one of them being your main hope. I would have been a wee bit concerned, but I'm a little bit more relaxed now. And the fact that it's not going to be a panic buy, because I think if we were to go with what we've got at the moment, it does probably still even feel a wee bit heavy up there. I mean, Sholak's when he plays, certainly the first half of the season, he looked just like goals every time he played. So again, if he's got a part to play, I can't imagine we're going to run with 4, 5, 6 players who can all play through the middle. So no, but we bit more relaxed on Danilo. But again, you can't help but watch the YouTube clips. And then he scored yesterday in his first pre-season friendly. So you're thinking, oh well, right, let's all get back on the Danilo train. But I think if he's to come in, I think you'll probably see 1 or 2 move out first. But yeah, one that we might see a wee bit later on in the window. So watch this space on that one, I think.
Yeah, we can't get away from the fact we have a really bloated squad at this moment in time, and we do need to now see. Now we've seen at least 6 come in. We can't get away from the fact we now need to downsize a little bit on that front, and that we need to see some players out the door. And we'll go on to talk about at least one of those, if not a few of those, later on in the podcast. John, Jose Cifuentes, I said at the start, it's been a transfer saga that's been running and running. I think, by all accounts, the player said about 5 goodbye messages to LAFC and their fans over the past few weeks. He played 90 minutes yet again last night for LAFC, which suggests the deal isn't any closer than it was beforehand. There were some reports in American media that a fee of around 102 million, that'd be far too much money. 1.2 million pounds had been agreed with LAFC. I've seen some places today that have rubbished that report. How important is it that Rangers get this one done soon, or do you think it's as long as it's done in this window, it's fine?
As long as it's done in the window. He's got the advantage. You've seen the video with the high performance person talking about the kind of sprints they're doing, the kind of runs they're doing to get themselves up to speed. He's right in the middle of his season. He's at peak. He'd be ready to come in on 3 weeks time and ready to go straight into the team without having played any pre-season friendlies. He's ready to go. He's playing 90 minutes because LA are hitting the playoff period. They need to try and secure that spot. And they've got so many people away at the Gold Cup. They've got people about to get the gap for the MLS All-Star game. So they're just having to play him. They're willing to take the risk, I guess, because it's maybe not a lot of money to them. It's just getting the money in if they're going to let him go. For us, I think he's vital, but I do think you can just bide your time. If it's to and fro over a couple of $100,000 though, that's going to infuriate you a little bit, because you would want him to come into the squad and get used to people and get used to Beale's style of play. But to be fair, like, if they're still talking, the agents are still talking, that's kind of messages you're going to get passed on. He can be watching video on Rangers and learning what he's going to be expected of anyway. That's the world we're in now. It's not going to necessarily need Beale to sit him down and talk to him like that. But we're not going to be at risk of him missing a pre-season. That's probably why Rangers are willing to wait for this. But you would want him in with the squad, because that's everyone now back. That's everyone ready to go. You want him in there.
Yeah, definitely, and especially with some important games around the Champions League qualifiers coming up early August as well. You 100% want him up to speed with how we want to play and how Michael Beale wants to play by that stage. GB, is this one that you expect to get over the line, and is it one that excites you?
You know, I've been a bit controversial with Cifuentes. It's not one that excites me. It's one that interests me. I think it's one of them. He ticks all the boxes for a YouTube failure or a YouTube sensation. You can see he covers the ground. He's physical. He's an internationalist, so that all's good. I do worry when players can't speak English. Listening to there was a Los Angeles fan podcaster on, and he said that's one thing that he hasn't done yet is learnt English. I think he's single word still, so I do worry when these boys come over, then come into our climate and then get in the thick of it, and it can take players a wee while to adapt to the surroundings and stuff. Similar to John, I'm quite relaxed in terms of do we need him right now? Does he walk straight? Is he that good that he walks straight into our starting 11? I'm not so sure. Is he in there ahead of Rask and Cantwell? I don't know. Maybe he is the third one within that trio. But no, as I say, he's one that I'm looking forward to seeing him. I've made the mistake a few times of watching, the clips where they show everything he does in a game, and he gives the ball away a hell of a lot. He takes on long passes that don't often come off, and a few other bits and bobs that will concern me. But on the other hand, if he gets over the line, I'll be back on the Cifuentes train, no bother. But I think, as I say, he's been linked with some big moves in the past. Again, quite relaxed in the fact that his contract he only went into the 6 months of his contract on the 1st of July there. So we've still got plenty of time on our hands in terms of him coming in. And to John's point, he's going to be fit, he's going to be ready. We will need to be patient with him as well, because as much as he's coming to the end of the season, he will need a wee bit of downtime. So it's not going to be a case of he's going to come in and play every minute of every game for the first 6 months. He's one that you could potentially get in the door now, but we mightn't see the best until post-winter break. You might see flashes here and there, but we've just got to be mindful that these type of players who've coming off the back of a season, to John's point, might start the season really well, but at some point he will need a wee bit of a rest. But hence having the squad filled of quality. I know that Beale spoke around having 2 11s. I think we'll probably carry with 2 11s on subs on each team, judging by the numbers we've got at the moment. So yeah, quite relaxed on it, but I will look forward to him coming in if he does come along.
Yeah, and I think the fact that his contract being up at the end of this year, the fact that he's entered the last 6 months and Rangers are able to sign him on a pre-contract just now is an important point to remember in all the discussions that have been going on around the transfer negotiations, and now we should just pay the money and get him in just now, etc., because we can sign him for free on a pre-contract, very similar to, I guess, the Glenn Kamara situation as it was with Dundee, and also the John Souttar situation with Hearts as well. Rangers will be trying to get the best price possible for him. They'll know what they're happy to go to, and it gives Rangers that extra bit of leverage as well in the discussion. So fingers crossed we'll see him in the door some point soon, and definitely before the start of the season. Welcome on to the podcast to Chris Ross, who says, based here in Canada, have seen Cifuentes a few times here on the telly, physical and very hard working. I think that's kind of the attributes that have definitely come through in those YouTube videos that both John and JB have spoken about, and definitely something that we like to add to, or I think we should be adding to our midfield heading into next season, alongside the likes of Rask and Cantwell in there. So a bit of watch this space on Jose Cifuentes, but hopefully in the next few weeks we'll start to see him coming through the door. Spoken about incomings, let's start to look at some of the outgoings. I think a squad sitting currently at over 30 first team players, which we know is too high. Michael Beale spoken in the past of looking at a squad about 25 or 26 in total, and that obviously doesn't include the sort of B team players or the youth team players that are also training with the squad. John, one of the main rumours this week has been that Glenn Kamara is looking for a Rangers exit. I don't think that surprised anyone anywhere, but the club that is rumoured, or the latest club that's rumoured to be interested in Glenn Kamara, because there has been a lot of clubs rumoured to be interested, but then no concrete bids coming in. But the latest club is Besiktas, who are rumoured to but only want to spend up to €2.5 million on Glenn Kamara. My first question to you is, we all expect Glenn Kamara to leave this summer. Is €2.5 million enough of a fee that you'd be happy to let him go for that much?
I think it is now. As frustrating as it is, like Glenn Kamara is somebody a year ago I'd have had 10 million put on him. I'd have been saying that's the number you need to go to get Glenn Kamara to leave Rangers in the middle of his deal. But for whatever reason, whatever's happened, like people talk about this now. Fans are more mindful a little bit when they sit down now and think about what's going on with people psychologically, mentally, what's going on in their personal life. He just doesn't seem the same person. This is a guy who he almost kind of kicked on his Rangers career by a wee bit of swagger against Scott Brown in the last Old Firm of the season. That was kind of what elevated him, and then from there he was just performance after performance. I mean, he could never shoot from outside the box, but everything else he did was so tidy, so nice. He was a key element of that team that went on in Europe, were good, won the title unbeaten. He was so pivotal. And see, at that point, when he signed that new deal, I was like, he is going to go for double figures. He will be the one. But don't speak disrespectfully, but he just seems like a bit like dead weight for us. It's a player we don't need in an area that we have plenty of cover. Raskin is a massive upgrade for what he does compared to Kamara. He's got so many other elements to his game. He just doesn't fit in, and if it's going to be a case of continuing to pay him his wage and just having him around, you take the money and reinvest it somewhere else.
Yeah, I think you mentioned Glenn Kamara and not shooting from outside the box. I read a peculiar stat about Glenn Kamara and shots outside the box. I think in total in his Rangers career, up to the end of last season, he'd had 12 shots from outside the box and he'd scored 8 of them, which is insane for a man that's never shot from outside the box, but always received the ball outside the box from corners. But yeah, I think in my opinion, Glenn Kamara checked out as soon as Bassey and Aribo left. I think that was his kind of support network around there, and that was his comfort area. And when the two of them left, I think last summer, that was him checking out too.
And I think as fans, we do kind of, now that we've got social media and we see that, you kind of forget that element. Like I've been in office jobs where I've ended up leaving because my mate went got another job and left, and it totally changed the environment I was in on a day-to-day working basis. That's what these guys are. They're employees. They work for Rangers. And if your best pals have moved onto pastures new and you're maybe not enjoying the football, once you take the element of your social life away from it outside, because outside of that'd have been the people he hung out with, had dinner with, it just puts a stress on, and that will bleed into your football. There's better players than Glenn Kamara that have shrunk to lower levels than Glenn Kamara has, but I just feel like it's time. I feel like time, like you said, was last summer, but just get what we can, I think, honestly. 2.5 million, I'd bite your hand off. Yeah,
Thomas H here in the comments saying Kamara isn't worth anything to us right now. He doesn't apply himself anymore. JB, I spoke about this in a podcast maybe about 2 weeks ago when we first came back from the sort of end of season break. I thought Glenn Kamara's value was still around the £3 to £4 million mark. Where do you stand on the €2.5 million fee that's reported from Turkey?
Yeah, similar to John there. When he signed that contract, you just kind of thought, right, he's the next big one. I do wonder whether there's been a wee bit of a fallout, because there was a reported bid from France. Was it tail end? Was it last season? One of the windows? And you just wonder whether that was part of potentially a wee bit of a gentleman's agreement in terms of, right, when a decent offer comes in for you, it'll be time for you to move on. Similar to what we've done with Aribo and Bassey, and to John's point in terms of that was a real close network that he had going. Defoe was also in that mix as well, in terms of probably a really good support network for him. So I think in terms of him, if he could turn it round, what an option it'd be. As much as we completely assume he has checked out, if we could get him back playing with a midfield three of Raskin, Cantwell and Kamara on it, then you wouldn't have too many complaints. But it's one of them. We're just so unforgiving, aren't we? I mean, that Hearts performance, not long after Beale came in, Hearts away, him and Lundstrom just looked like two absolute world beaters, and you thought, right, we're going to kickstart here, and then we're going to go again. And then we never seen him for weeks and weeks, and then he would come back in. He was a bit part. Then he come back in against Celtic in with it was one of the semis or a final, and he was just absolutely chasing shadows. Just didn't look interested. Didn't want to track back. Didn't want to put a foot in. And I say once a player does check out, unfortunately, and again I do get the psychological side of things, but once a player does check out, it's not very often they do turn it back around. Just a shame, because obviously he's still continuing to perform really well for Finland. I think he was Finland's Player of the Year last year, if memory serves me right. So obviously the ability's still there, but as you say, sometimes the weight of the Rangers jersey can pull people down, and if you're not on it, then it might just be another one that's going to go down that route. Again, I think in terms of wherever he goes, I think he'll do well. He needs to go to a team that has plenty of possession with the ball. And again, he'll just have to pick his move right. A top-end Turkey team mightn't be too bad. I'm just hoping Gerrard comes back in for him and maybe takes him to Saudi, and maybe that 2 million turns into I don't know, a 15 million, but yeah, no, it'll be one to watch. But again, you'd wish him well. Again, he had some massive performances. I mean, back where I sit up in the Govan when he killed that one with his left foot, I just remember seeing it. It was going wide about 2 yards, then came back in. And then what a feeling once the roof went off, once the ball hit the back of the net. And then some of his old performances in the 55 season were remarkable. So one that we'd wish well, but I just think his story's finished with Rangers now. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's a real shame, to be honest, the way it's kind of petered out a bit for Glenn Kamara in recent seasons. He, like you say, he had some great performances and he was pivotal in terms of us getting a foothold against Celtic again in league games and cup games. And then that, as you say, that goal against Leipzig to put us 2-0 up on the night so early on was fantastic. And that was one of those outside of the box shots as well that hit the back of the net. So if only he did it more. John, looking a bit, I guess, more widely at the potential outgoings this summer, I spoke about the size of the squad being over 30. Currently, how many are you expecting to see out the door? We've already seen, obviously, the 5 leave on the end of their contracts at the end of last season. Probably still need another 5 or 6 out the door, but you're kind of relying on, well, where does the interest come from? When do the bids come from? There's a lot of European leagues don't really start their transfer activity until towards the end of July time. You see that with the English Premier League quite a bit in terms of they go for their first targets at the start of July, and if they can't get them, they start to whittle that down. The money then goes to the Championship clubs, who then have the money to spend elsewhere, and that's probably where quite a lot of the players leaving us will end up. Where do you stand on how many you think will leave, and who do you think are the key ones that we'll see departing Rangers this summer?
So you want the end of summer with 24, and then you can sprinkle a few youth team players in your squad to fulfil cup games early on, League Cup games and stuff like that. The ones who are going to go, and we'll try and on Scott Wright bash, but Scott Wright is one. Matondo or Sakala, we don't need both those players as far as I'm concerned. We just don't for the style of play we're going to play. It's going to be very similar back to midfield domination in that middle, when it'll more likely be inverted 10s that are going to be the people playing off. If you get Roof fit, that's the thing again we're always saying. I think Cholak will go and Danilo will come in. So I'd just like for like. So I think Cholak, Wright, Sakala or Matondo. That would be the 3 that I would be looking at squad need to go first. Beyond that, it depends on, do you get money for Kamara?
Yeah, I think in my opinion, we'll see Cholak go. I've not heard many people say that recently, to be honest, and more people seem to be swaying towards the fact that Cholak might stay. But I think Antonio Cholak, there was a rumour about Werder Bremen potentially being interested in him, and I think that would be a move that would probably interest Antonio Cholak, especially with the signing of Dessers. He'll realise that he's not going to be the number one striker. He might limit his game time. He seems to be a guy that thrives on confidence and thrives on having that run of games, and I'm not entirely convinced he's going to get that at Rangers, so it might be one that we cash in on. I would keep Sakala, but Matondo would probably be out the door for me. I think there was reports saying as much earlier on in the summer, a couple of weeks ago, potentially, that Matondo has been told they can find another club. Glenn Kamara, I'd expect to be out the door. Ben Davies is one that I'm still expecting to leave. I quite like Ben Davies, but going by how we're still looking for a left-sided centre-half to come in, I'm not convinced we need 6, if you can include Leon King within the group. So Ben Davies is the obvious one. If we can get the £4 million back for Ben Davies, probably take that and say thank you very much. But as I said, I do like him as a player. So I think there's options there that we can see out the door. There's not that many that we'll get a lot of money for. I think you're looking at Ben Davies and Glenn Kamara there for that one. JB, what are your thoughts on the outgoings side of things and the sort of movement over the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think similar to what you just said there. I think I don't think we'll rush some of them out the door. I think in terms of like the likes of Ben Davies, I wouldn't really want to go into a European game relying on Goldson and Suter. There will need to be some form of continuity in there. I mean, we did see it. It was I can't remember who it was, away from home. Was it Sparta Prague maybe? Who was it that smashed us away from home? And Balogun was centre off with Bassi, and the pair of them just looked absolutely lost. And you could just see the importance of playing two centre halves playing together and having that relationship. So I think if we can get Goldson back for these qualifiers, I know it's going to be touch and go. Him, Davis, and or Suter, I think will be the three I'd be quite content going into these qualifiers with. If we are going to be bringing in another centre half, it'll probably be one that can maybe play centre half and can cover at left back as well, or left in a three. So I think from the names that have been linked, whether it be Trusty, the American lad from Arsenal, and then Panzo, obviously another name that's been heavily linked. Throwing these guys straight into a European Champions League qualifier, I'm not 100% sure that's the right way to go. You might argue, okay, well, we threw Davis into a Champions League group, and how did that work out? But as bad as some of the European performances was, I remember Ben Davis had a pretty good performance at Anfield, and obviously with that quality of competition. And then even if you think about the Champions League qualifiers away last year, we went into that with Goldson and Sands at centre half. Now, as it happens, Sands probably had his best game in a Rangers jersey, but I certainly wouldn't want to go into that game without a clear plan. I'd like to see that. I'm sure they are. The team will be working on now what that looks like in terms of them European qualifiers. So you might find again your likes of Davis, your Sholaks, your Wrights, your Kamara, even Kamara and Matundu. These guys might go out later on in the window once we're confident we've got everybody in. And we get a couple of these Champions League qualifiers out the way. I've got no concerns with carrying a heavy squad into the first couple of games, because Beale's going to have some fantastic options in terms of he can look to the side there. I'm not sure how it works in terms of naming the European squad. Does it work the same in terms of the amount you need to put up for the qualifiers, or you'll add a wee bit more? But yeah, I think that'll probably be another sign as well as to where the squad's at when we get that squad named, whether that does need to be done a couple of weeks before or whatever. So yeah, I think the names that we've all mentioned there, I think you wish them all well. But at some point we do need to balance the books sensibly. I don't think we've got a saleable asset right here, right now. We've got plenty of ability and plenty of potential. The likes of Raskin, Cantwell, these are probably ones that we'll look to recycle in the coming years. But to get us through to the start of the season, I think you'll see these boys kicking around for the next few weeks.
Yeah, I'm going to throw another name in there purely because we've signed Dujon Sterling, and we obviously have Ridvan Yilmaz, who I think performed well and showed what he's capable of in the last few games after the split. John, I'm going to come to you and get Borna Barisic. Is that name, by the way? I actually forgot to name him when I was talking there. But Borna Barisic is one that I would also not expect to see go out the door, but being an option that if a team came in and decided to make an offer for him, that I could see him leaving. John, where do you stand on sort of Borna Barisic and Ridvan Yilmaz in that discussion?
I think actually last season, at the end of it, I think when Ridvan came in, we were all quite happy because I think we'd seen Barisic kind of drift away a little bit from what he was good at. We'd seen him kind of, it's hard to say freeze, but he did feel like he froze in a couple of Old Firm games and a couple of big games. But you could still see him in there at times. And then at points last season, he was up there with Tav. He was as good as his delivery, his goal contributions were excellent. He actually put in some good performances. So see, up until about 6 games to go at the end of the season, I would have been like, no, we need to keep Barisic because Yilmaz hasn't hit what we wanted to. I know there was an injury. But as you said, watching Yilmaz at the end with a different type of team and understanding as to where he was going, people were hitting the box for his deliveries. I was like, right, okay, this is what I thought we'd signed from the couple of clips I'd seen. So if he's now got a pre-season with Beale, he's no longer changed his manager, and you've got different players who I think are at a much higher level and intelligent technical footballers. I reckon Yilmaz will be the number one left back. So I can't imagine Barisic is going to sit at Rangers on the bench.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that one. That's entirely where I'm coming from. And with the addition of Dujon Sterling as well, who can also play at right back or left back, it'll be, I can't imagine he's coming in to be a second choice right back or a third choice left back. So I think going by that logic, I would guess that Borna Barisic is probably on his way out the door. But there was a report earlier in the summer as well that Rangers were considering offering Borna Barisic a new contract, which would be a really interesting way to go about it. I know he's entering the last 12 months of his current deal, but it'd be a really interesting way for Rangers to do that, because even if he does sign a new contract, I don't think you're ever going to get big money for Borna Barisic. So I don't really see the added benefit there for Rangers. A couple of comments about Barisic. Hugo Bayer saying, not a fan of Barisic, and Scott Stephen 19 saying Ridvan is the number one left back. In my opinion, I think I would have to agree with that one. And just to round off that discussion, Marky21 Cop said would like to see Kamara, Wright, Matondo, Barisic, and McLaughlin all go. I think that John McLaughlin's one we've not mentioned, but we'd all expect John McLaughlin to find his way out the door, except if we need the Scottish guy for the European games, at which point John McLaughlin might well be I'd almost make him our third choice goalkeeper now behind Robbie McCrory. That's probably another discussion. John, you looked like you were going to come in there.
Yeah, I mean, even beyond that, see if I can't imagine John McLaughlin is in that stage of his career where he would be willing to not play. He's probably only got a year or two left, depending on how his body holds up. But see, for experience, Butland hasn't played regularly for 3 years. So see, for all your opinions on McLaughlin as a goalkeeper, he let himself down when he was given the number one shot. As far as I'm concerned, that Old Firm kind of stung him a little bit. But it's hard to get 3 good goalies who will raise everyone's standards. And I think that's where, if McLaughlin isn't motivated by playing now, he could be really beneficial, especially for McCrory and Butland, who Butland's kind of a new club. He could be really important around the training ground. You're losing McGregor's experience in that. I don't know if I would be so quick to get rid of McLaughlin. If he was willing to stay, he's an excellent third goalie. You've got 3 goalies that I would be, if we had some sort of catastrophe and you're having to drop to your third choice goalie and it's John McLaughlin coming in, I'm very happy with that.
Yeah, to be honest, I was more of the opinion of something you mentioned there, in terms of he's only got 1 or 2 years left of his career. He'd probably want to go and play for someone even like a Hearts or a Hibs or someone like that, where he'll be guaranteed game time and he would be able to play out the last few years of his career. But like you say, he might enjoy the environment at Ibrox. He might like to take on that more of this, I'm going to say, be a bit harsh and say the Scott Carson role at Rangers, but just in terms of that being a good guy around the dressing room, being the guy that kind of helps to knit everyone together and play that important role. So he might be more than happy to do that, and Rangers might help him have a gateway into coaching and all that side of stuff as well, which he may sign on for. But if he wants to play, I don't imagine he'll be happy to sit as our third choice goalkeeper and still be here towards the end of the summer, albeit we've not actually heard any rumours at all about John McLaughlin, whether he's wanting to stay or whether he's wanting to leave or anything at all, or if there's been any interest in him either. So be interested. It'll be kind of watch that space with him as well. Okay, so we'll round off the kind of transfer discussion there. It's one of these things that runs and runs and runs, and there's something new every 2 hours on Rangers social media with fans discussing rumours and all that sort of stuff. So I'm sure there'll be plenty for Kyle and the team to speak about on Wednesday as well when they come back on. Moving on to the training camp in Germany, Rangers flew out just after a 0-0 draw against Livingston, which got some interesting reactions from fans on social media. Never be surprised by how Rangers Twitter reacts, even to a closed doors friendly at the training ground. But some of the videos we've seen have been really positive. Some of the content we've seen has been really positive. We've seen the likes of Connor Goldson, Tom Lawrence, Kamara Roof all out there and on the training pitch. By all accounts, they're all recovering well from the injuries that they had. JB, how important is it that we have all 3 ready for the start of the season? I'd probably say Connor Goldson is the most important to have ready out those 3, but how important can those 3 be when the new season starts?
Yeah, no, I think it was interesting. That was one of the ones I was looking forward to reading this morning in terms of who's going to give any type of injury update. I think Goldson's the rock, isn't he? Let's have it right. He seems to get the best out of anyone who's playing next to him. Again, I would be a bit wary of going into any big games without Goldson in there. I think in terms of the other 2, I think if we can get Lawrence back playing, I just think he'd just be an absolute game changer for us. There was times last season, early on, obviously in the handful of games, the 2 handful of games that he played for us, he could just see that he had something a wee bit different than we hadn't seen for a while. The fact he's 2-footed, the fact he'll take a shot on from outside the box, his performance in Eindhoven away was fantastic when he rattled the bar. It was not long before we scored, or just after we scored, and you could just see. Actually, I've said this a few times. Actually, know a few people that are actually pally with him, and he said he's absolutely loving it. He was heartbroken in terms of when he sustained the injury. People know my view on he should have been subbed off 10 minutes earlier. Use your 5 subs if you can use them. Like a bingo sheet of what I was going to say. But yeah, if we can get him back playing, it's just another really good option, especially when we're coming up against teams with the low block, especially at Ibrox. If you've got boys like Cantwell, like Lawrence, Dowell, all these lads who are prepared to take a pop from outside the box, and you fill in the box with guys like Dessers, who's just looking to sniff around the tap in, Sholak if he stays round, Roof, we know that's his game. If we can get players like that and we're getting shots away from the edge of the box, then all the better. And then obviously Kamara Roof, we've spoke about him a couple of times already throughout the pod. He's hitting 25, 30 goals if he stays fit, but it's that massive if. I think he's one that he's going to need to be sensibly managed throughout the season. He's one that I'd like to see when games are won, which we haven't been doing over the last few years, other than the 55 season. Every game last season felt as if we were actually sweating till the 90 odd minute. The amount of games we were winning by the odd goal, or we'd concede one in the 88th minute, and then it was just, oh, here we go, backs against the wall, and it's a sigh of relief once the final whistle goes. So, but he's someone, if you're bringing him off the bench and you need a goal, or even if the game's tight and you want to finish the game off, then you just know what he's going to deliver. He's done it a couple of times, obviously last season, and no bigger when he came off the bench against Aberdeen, and was it one of the semi-finals? So no, I think them three will be really important to us. I think in terms of the training videos that you touched on there, it's good. It's good, but it's also frustrating. I don't know if anyone's seen the Todd Cantwell one, where he's sitting in a golf buggy. He's not actually being interviewed. It's just as if it's like a really poor carpool video where it's as if they've left the camera on, they forgot it's there. It's a bit weird, but you just see again, he just seems like a really nice guy, doesn't he? And he's someone that you think you can tell he's just enjoying being in and around the club and stuff. So, but it's bad when you're starting to watch Harry Waltling do keep-ups. You're studying to see how many he's doing, and you're listening to the shouts. I know Alex Lowry was getting a rough ride the other week from the coaching staff. He was getting a wee bit more praise. So when you start to turn to a psychologist watching a 7-minute training video, I think that definitely puts us under the obsessed category. So in the right way, I might add as well. So, but no, it all looks good. And then I've seen Sam Lammers' flick up and volley as well, just before we came on as well. So he looked like he was playing quite central, which might surprise a few as well. So yeah, watch this space on him as well.
Yeah, I'm yet to see that Sam Lammers goal. I need to check that out after the podcast. John, Chris Ross says, looking forward to seeing Lawrence back. Darren Knox says Lammers will keep Lawrence out the team. How exciting to you is the prospect of a fully fit Tom Lawrence as we head into the new season?
Lawrence and everyone. I'll settle for a season that wasn't like last year, man. Honestly, one of the interesting things that I think for the interview with, my God, I keep forgetting his name. Who's the head of performance? The guy that interviewed him.
Jack Aid.
That's the one.
There you go. That's the one. He said something really interesting, that they're doing a lot of individual runs that the players have asked for from when Gerrard was in. And one of the things from a physiological point of view, when you do your coaching badges, they talk about transition from one manager to a different manager. And if they're doing specific fitness work and specific physiology requirements on the style of play, and you drop to what I would have considered, with no disrespect, Van Bronckhorst was a slower style of play, in and out of possession. So presumably, just finger in their guess, training might have been similar to that as well. And then you see all these players, not even ones that were under Gerrard as well, but all these players breaking down continually and never getting back, would have suggested to me that our training was not equipped for the games we were playing, and people continually broke down and no way back. So I do think you've probably seen people like Roof and Goldson, who never missed a game under Gerrard, going, we used to do these runs every session to get the legs going. Let's do the individual runs again, because it seemed like it was something that they said categorically it was the players that asked for it, and it was stuff they were used to. And I've been at that even at semi-professional clubs, where players have said, I used to do these runs at X club and we all loved it. It's what we needed to do to get that extra 3K under our belt when we're doing 2 training sessions. So if players are asking for it, there's probably players that will be getting niggling injuries, and they believe, whether it's psychological or not, that they want these runs to avoid these injuries. So I'm hoping that we probably see a bit of the same with Lawrence, Roof. I'm hoping we see a bit of prolonged fitness within the team, because that was the one thing that was always pointed at Gerrard's team, was we couldn't believe how fit we always seemed all the time. We always seemed at it, and very rarely did we have an injury list that contained more than 3 people. It would be knocks and they'd be back. So I'm hoping this is the end of Lawrence's stuff, because like JB was saying, he was the one last season that I was going, oh my God, I can't believe we've got him. He looks unbelievable. And he's probably going to fulfill that Arfield goal threat that we've lost, because although Scott Arfield was a bit part player, Scott Arfield scored goals every time he was on a Rangers pitch. So I'm hoping Lawrence can come in and do that. And it changes. See, to be honest, Lawrence, like you said, players that are taking shots from outside the box. If you've got Lawrence and Tavernier and Cantwell, people willing to take a dig from outside the box, teams can't sit in the way they do. See, if you've got that threat, that's why people have been able to do it, because they know we won't take shots from outside the box. We will let them camp in. And I think that just then opens up the whole thing we've always been good at under Gerrard/Beale, is fullbacks getting the ball and crossing areas, hitting the box, and you've got strikers and midfielders hitting the box, and that is where we're dangerous. I think Lawrence just adds another thing. Roof's one of those players. Roof's probably the best all-round striker at the club. He's just never bloody fit. He's never there. Yeah. But when Roof's played, he bringing people into play, he's so strong, he's good in the air, his finishing's unbelievable. He is the perfect striker, and he should be having the goals record that Morelos had, but he's never been fit.
Yeah, hold that thought on Kamara Roofs. I'm going to come back to you after I speak about a couple of comments. Cubby Cubster says, glad we've got a new fitness coach. Something was going very wrong with injuries. Robert Binney, an injury-free season would really be something. Thomas H picks up on your point about Gerrard. We should always be the hardest working team on the pitch, just like when Gerrard was in charge. And then Pete Lawrence says, just imagine if Roof's injury is solved and he manages half the season in key games. That would be brilliant. Just on Kamara Roof, John, what if he does stay fit, and we'll stay in an ideal world and say he does stay fit for the full season, what role do you see him fulfilling for Rangers this season?
It really does depend. Like, we're all saying it's a big outgoing for Dessers to come in, a big outgoing, so you've got to suggest that he is the number 9. But if Roof gets fit and Roof's scoring goals, Michael Beale is not going to play somebody because he paid £5 million for him. He's going to play the guy that's going to win you games. And Kamara Roof, under the 55 season, under Gerrard, proved that he is that guy. He will win us games on his own. So it's just staying fit. If Kamara Roof stays, see if Kamara Roof was guaranteed to play 90% of our games, we wouldn't have went and spent £5 million on a striker, as far as I'm concerned. But Roof did show during the 55 season that he was able to play out on the right as well, coming in as a second striker. So it gives you that different option. Like Roof is a very athletic footballer as well. He can play out on the right side comfortably and be a better goal threat than people have always had, because our right winger, like, that's why I always felt sorry for Tavernier. Like, it changed every week after Aribo left. It was always a new person he was having to play in front of him just to get that consistency. So I think if Roof was fit, you could actually see Roof playing in a front three alongside Dessers going forward. And then it's just such a goal threat. Like, he is, I keep saying this, he's the best striker at the club, best all-round striker at the club, but he's still there.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw that in it was the semi-final against Aberdeen. We saw when he came on and he scored that goal for us in extra time, and it was just that was the epitome of Kamara Roof in terms of what he can offer us, and he can, what the quality he can offer you in and around the box. JB, just to round off this chat about Kamara Roof, Robert Binney says a fit Roof starts every week. Do you? John's nodding his head there, so he definitely agrees. Do you agree with that one?
Yeah, no, most definitely. And I think another thing that we haven't seen from him as well, he played a lot of his time at Leeds and Oxford coming in off the left. But obviously, again, we were so conditioned to Ryan Kent playing out there as well. So as much as John says he gives us that option coming in from the right, he can also come in from the left. You think of some of the goals he scored, a couple of the crackers. I think one of, was it Standard Liège at home in Europe? Yeah, absolutely buried it from about 25, 30 yards. So I think, yeah, it's just going to fall under that category if we can keep him fit. One thing about him as well, when he does play, he puts a hell of a shift in. So if you've got the likes of him, and from what we've been reading about Dessers in terms of him liking to work hard and put an absolute shift in, if we can almost not necessarily defend from the front, but if we can work hard from the front and force errors, let's have it right. The teams that we're up against domestically week in, week out aren't blessed with footballing centre-halves. So when these guys are on the ball, if we can create the right traps for them and a really high press, then it's going to work. The amount of times we see certainly last season when you watched any headlines of Scottish football, replays or highlights of Scottish football, the amount of goals Celtic scored through unforced errors from defenders and goalkeepers was unbelievable. But you just knew with ourselves, mainly because of the fitness and the injuries, we just didn't have that. We didn't have any consistency. You could see the players were more pressing throughout the midfield, and it was the 55 season. We showed nobody any respect, and then even the first few months of the season, it was the same. But then as soon as obviously Gio came in with a completely different style, a lot more ball dominating, then we kind of moved off that. Apart from in Europe. In Europe, we seem to go with the not showing any respect approach, but domestically, we were happy for that teams come up further up the pitch, play on the halfway line. So no, I think it's going to be looking good as well in terms of you just know that Beale knows how to win games, certainly up the road as well. Whereas with Gio, I think it was almost a case of trying to learn domestically on the job. Obviously, we know he's played in the country, but the game's probably moved on in the last 15, 20 years since he was here. So we'll, again, looking forward to it. But if we can get Kamara fit, then again, 56 as well on the way.
It feels like much more than 12 months ago that we were talking about Giovanni van Bronckhorst as the manager of Rangers, doesn't it? It's insane on that front. John, just on the, we'll kind of round off, we're heading towards the hour, so we'll round off the podcast talking about Michael Beale's comments in the written press today. He spoke to the media, he spoke to the written press at the media day, with some of the quotes being published today from that one. I've picked out a couple of key points that I'm keen to discuss with you and JB. First one I'll put to you, first of all, was that he stressed the importance of Champions League football to Rangers this season and says we'll be going hell for leather to qualify. The aim is to reach the Champions League group stage, be in pot 3, and then be in Europe after Christmas. We're all a bit battle scarred from last season in the Champions League. We've all got a wee bit of fear around going into that stage again. Obviously, we spent a great deal of time on this podcast discussing the new incoming, so it's not like it'll be the same team that's going to line up for the Champions League group stage if we do get there. How important do you see Champions League football being? Is it purely just financial importance, or is it importance from a club stature thing as well?
I think those quotes are backing up the transfers we've been taking care of. See, instead of waiting for us to see if we qualify for Champions League group stage, he's probably outlaid a lot of his budget for the next 12 months based on the fact that if I get my players in, it pushes confidence, get the quotes out, be clear that Champions League football is what we're going for. We have signed people like Nico Raskin, Todd Cantwell, Dessers on the ambition that we will be a Champions League team and still in Europe after Christmas. That's what we're pushing at these guys, and see if we want to see the type of outlay coming back in for Todd Cantwell that I think we can get based on what he was valued at 3 years ago when he was at the peak of his powers. You get him in Champions League. I just see these type of players as being players who will consistently go up the levels, whereas unfortunately, if you're telling me you have to stick James Sands and Ben Davies in at centre-half in Champions League, you're going to end up bottom of the group with record tallies. And it's a shame for both those players because those players were also landed in that situation. So it's not a dig at their ability, it's just that is where we are. If you're then telling me the players that we've brought in, you add Raskin, Cantwell, Yilmaz, the way he looks now, even to our Champions League group stage team, if you put them 3 in that starting 11 the way they played at the end of the season, I think you actually we probably pick up more points because there was games at home, as stupid as this sounds. Napoli, we were in. Napoli, I felt like we were dominating them for large parts of the game. We're always going to have the first. If you think of Gerrard's first Europa League campaign, that group stage wasn't exactly great. The teams we were playing weren't great. It's the first time back in a European group stage. The Champions League was always going to be a step up. Didn't matter what we'd done in the Europa League. We took the beatings and then we realised where the gap is. That's what we realised. It wouldn't be the same. I just can't foresee it being anywhere near the same, to be honest. I think it's important for us. Rangers fans, we all think this is the best club in the world because we support this club and what the types of fans we have and the amount of fans we have. Rangers, to get people like Todd Cantwell and Nico Raskin continually coming to our club, we need to consistently hit the group stages of the Champions League to sell to these players. Yeah, Rangers is never going to be a final destination, but if you come here, you can play Champions League football and we can then get you to where although it didn't work out for Bassi, we can get you to the next club that will take your career to the next level. We need that blueprint to be able to get people in cheap, Champions League football, raise their value, sell them on, make profit, and continually just do that. That is what the Champions League aspect needs to come from. As someone that coaches the Saturday, I would prefer we were in the Europa League, but that's just so I can go to games on the Sunday.
That's fair. I know a few people that work on Saturdays and are quite happy when we're in Europa League and they get to go to the games every Sunday. JB, just on the Champions League point, John's in the comments and he says, need to get that monkey off the back with Champions League labels from last season to where we were 6 months earlier, playing everything out as it I guess it's expected to, given the rankings of clubs where it's likely we're going to meet either PSV or Marseille in the playoff round. Is that I guess a group of teams that you'd be comfortable as facing, and given the squad where it is, would you be confident of going through from that sort of tie?
Yeah, believe it or not, I'm actually more confident than I was going into last year against PSV. If we were to get them again, I think if you look at the players, certainly they've lost over since we last played them. Obviously, then they've had a manager turn round. Obviously, Cody Gakpo's gone. A couple of the centre halves have gone. The big lad who plays centre mid, I'm not sure if he's still there, at Sagres. But I think I'd be confident based on what I'm seeing so far. I mean, the Champions League last year was an absolute disaster. I mean, remember when the draw come out and we all looked at it and we thought, oh, well, if we can get a home win against Ajax, a point at Ajax, and then Napoli, well, fancy them at home. They've not been around the block for a wee while. And then, wow, what a team they turned out to be in their season they had. And obviously Liverpool, again, going 1-0 up against them at Ibrox, you thought, oh, this is going to be a special night. And I remember just sitting there, and at one point I lost, you lost count of the score. Do you know what I mean? It was almost like, oh God, this is bad. Like, especially for me, being down here, I was thinking, oh, we'll show a few here what we're all about. And no, it just didn't work out well. But again, I think it's going to just be a case of, I think we're doing all the right things. Let's put it that way. I think from a board perspective, they supported the manager. I think I've always felt as if the last couple of seasons, certainly if you think about Gerrard going into that Malmo game, you almost felt as if there was a wee bit of a divide between the club, between the board, the fans, the management team. And if you haven't got that solidarity, it's not a good thing. Whereas I think the board have definitely supported the manager, and in turn, the fans are excited and looking forward to it. I feel as if we'll be ready, and I think if we don't get over the line, because we come up against a good Marseille side or a good PSV side, I think it was meant to be Monaco last year as well, was one of the options. Then, as long as we go out there and give it a right good go and good representation of ourselves, and we're going in there prepared. And if it's a fine margin, penalties, extra time type of thing, then sometimes you might need to go, well, okay, we'll have to go into the Europa and give it a right good go. But I love nothing more to see us back into that Champions League, because lessons will be learned. I think any players that were there will want to prove themselves wrong. And to John's point earlier, it was a horrific season for injuries. Do you know what I mean? In terms of when you start the Champions League games and you've got James Sands, who you'd argue's best position is central midfield, on loan from America, from the MLS. And then you've got Leon King getting thrown in. I mean, did I read the day Leon King played all 6 group stage matches of the Champions League? I mean, what an ask on that kid. Do you know what I mean? To be able to go and do that. But hopefully he's all the stronger for it. But I think if we, you never know, we might have a wee bit of luck in the draw as well. If we can get through them, who's to say that the other two will get through their first qualifiers? Because I think for us, we're certainly looking up for it and looking prepared. Let's just hope that PSV and Marseille are going through a wee bit of a transitional period at the moment, aren't as prepared as we're looking. So fingers crossed that the Champions League music's back, because I can't, games on a Sunday are a nightmare for me getting the train up from down south. There's no trains that get me back in time. So I want Saturday football. So there you go, from a selfish perspective.
There you go. One of you will be at the games and one of you won't. So so we can take it from there. I think going on to the next point, and JB, I'll stick with you for this one. First of all, Michael Beale said he's excited to take the challenge to Brendan Rodgers. He spoke about how the two have known each other for quite a considerable length of time. We also spoke about some of the players that we've signed so far this summer. We're even on our transfer watch list from as far back as 2018, and he's still excited by their arrival. Just on the Brendan Rodgers and Celtic point and being excited to take the challenge to them. John spoke earlier on about how it was almost like Michael Beale was preparing the team to take on a Postecoglou Celtic team, given the height and the weakness at set pieces. One thing I've always admired about Michael Beale is his ability to adapt a strategy, to adapt a formation to counteract the strengths of other teams, particularly teams who are potentially on a similar level to us or slightly stronger than us. Are you excited about the prospect of how we take the challenge to those on the other side of the city?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think it's never a bad thing. Certainly, a coach knowing what the manager he's coming up against in terms of what he's all about, what his style of play like, what his mentality's like. Dr. Waller, I'm sure, would have been all ears around Leicester's training ground in terms of picking up stuff in terms of what Rodgers was looking for last year at Leicester. So when coming in, you never know, might be able to give a little dossier on some of the tactical stuff. But I think to John's point earlier, I think Michael Beale knows how to win games in Scotland. His record away from home for the first few months he was in was absolutely unbelievable, and the performances, it just ticked the boxes from what we wanted. I mean, we went to Easter Road and I think they just come off the back of 6 straight wins, and we absolutely blew them apart. And it was 4-1 on the night or something. We went 1-0 down, but then as soon as that first one went in, it looked as if it could have been 5, 6s and 7s. And there was a few of them performances that we probably just didn't click, and probably put teams to the sword, which this season I'm hoping that we're going to do. But I think in terms of as we go into the start of the season, we just need to get off to a flyer. We just need to get them first couple of games, go to Rugby Park and put a bit of a statement out there in terms of what we're all about this season. We don't want to be one of these teams where it's almost kind of sitting back, waiting for things to happen. I want to see this Michael Beale team very much on the front foot. He's built a team, I know we've touched on it a few times, full of athletes. They're going to cover ground quickly. We're going to be a physical presence in both boxes. That was always a fear of mine when you're coming up against some of these jobbers, in terms of you give a free kick away in your own half and all of a sudden there's 3, 4, 5, 6 6'2" coming in at you. We've got that to counteract that. And again, once we've got the ball down and playing, I think we should be absolutely fine. I think we know what Brendan Rodgers is going to try and bring in terms of a style of play. He's done it everywhere he's been. And one thing he has done, he's got performances out of players that are already at the club. Where we'll find it interesting to see how Rodgers does move on with his transfer strategy. Because it's okay having all this money in the bank. We know that they don't like to throw big money at signings, but they're not going to go and replace a Jota. They're not going to be able to go and spend. They might try and find a like for like in terms of skill set, but unless they're determined to go massively destroy their wage budget, then it's going to be interesting to see what they do. They've been known to keep things tight. And Brendan Rodgers' signing records, both at Liverpool and Celtic and Leicester, have been horrific in terms of some of the players that he signed over his career. So I don't think he's got an eye for a player. So yeah, I'm probably getting a bit ahead of myself here in terms of ambition, but I think we've got the battle fever on already. So yeah, you can tell things are getting exciting. I think that the highlight, when we caught up earlier, the highlight of my day was hearing Michael Beale say to Fashion Takala, "Unbelievable composure, Fashion, well done." And I thought, this is it. Everything's looking good. The stars are aligning. So yeah, watch this space.
John, JB's clearly excited about the season ahead. Michael Beale spoke about his excitement, taking the challenge to Brendan Rodgers. How confident are you, looking at the squad that's been built, looking at how Michael Beale, I guess, made some tweaks towards the end of last season and what the additional changes you're expecting this summer? How confident are you heading into next season that we'll be able to sustain that challenge throughout the season? It seems to have tailed off in the last couple of years about the winter break time. So how confident are you that firstly we sustain that challenge and that we'll be there or thereabouts come the end of the season when the trophies are handed out?
Yeah, exactly that. I like Beale. I remember seeing loads of people last season being like, God, can he get media training? Can he shut up? Can he stop getting headlines? I think Beale is very clever beyond his years already. I think he was trying to goad Postecoglou the whole time to try and get behind him, try and get under his skin, do something, because we'd never seen Postecoglou lose his composure. And now Celtic have appointed someone who is probably the best UK coach around just now, as far as I'm concerned. And if you're Michael Beale, that does excite you, because Gerrard didn't manage to best him. He's still, regardless of what happened at Leicester City, Brendan Rodgers is the best UK coach. If Michael Beale can go and best him at the Champions, after what he did with Celtic beforehand, being totally unprecedented, the type of domination they had over us, you would be excited if you're Michael Beale. Because if you win this league, you're a success at Rangers, and you've done it against probably the best UK coach over the last 10 years. I think it's huge for him. The one thing I will say is, I honestly have no idea how Celtic are going to play. Because when the Rodgers that left Celtic's a very different one to the one that came back. He's been playing 3-4-3 for the last 14 months at Leicester. I wouldn't imagine that's a system he's going to bring back into Celtic. You've got John Kennedy, who's been leading the training sessions, who Brendan Rodgers will now want to take that back. So you've got somebody who's going to take a back seat again. So Beale will probably be second guessing as to what he's going to get. You know the type of football you're going to get for Brendan Rodgers. It's going to be possession based. It's going to be nice. They're going to attack. They're going to be in the front foot. But Beale will know all that part already. I just think everything's kind of aligning for him. He's talking about all the things that, yeah, not to get too happy, but you'd want from somebody who's trying to manifest what their football career is going to be. He's talking about getting into the Champions League. He's talking about wanting to challenge himself against Brendan Rodgers. He's talking about wanting to win trophies at Rangers. He can't really say anything else. If we've got somebody that's going to come in and talk about Rangers being challenging, no, Rangers challenged regardless of what state they're in. We were challenging under Warburton. And the only comment I think he did say that I maybe disagreed with was he talked about the expectation being higher. The expectation was there regardless when Gerrard came in. We always expect to win the league. That's just par for the course. But I'm very excited. I said that I did a Beale did a midfield masterclass thing with the SFA. It was him, Paul Scholes, and Dan Fletcher, a couple others. And the way he talked about dominating the middle of the park, and if he had his own team, he talked about what he was doing at Rangers at the time. But if he had his own team, this is what he would advance again. And it was just exciting, and I can already kind of see the type of player he's brought in. It's going to be really aggressive. I honestly think, see, you talked about those games where it could have been 6, 7, 8. I think this could be a season where it's going to have to be, because I think we're getting close to helicopter Sunday type scenarios with goal difference and how punishing we're going to need to be. And I think that's why he wants a strong, fit, attractive bench, because we're going to want to do what they kind of did against Hamilton in the 2020 season, where you brought players on and they came on and scored goals and you ended up winning 8-0. You're going to want that impact. And I think, same with JB, I think he's rubbed off on me. I'm absolutely buzzing. I think Beale's saying all the right things, the right signings, everything just seems to be aligning. This is like been a proper transfer window from January to now. And just the way the style of play looks, it's just more pleasing, because that's what you pay your money for now. It's not just about winning things. You want to be entertained at all times. And I just feel like Beale's pushing everyone forward. Don't let any negativity seep in. It's not about challenging. It's not about maybe qualifying for Champions League and being in Europe after Christmas. It's being in Europe. It's winning the title. You've got to do that to your players. You can't do anything else.
Yeah, it's fair to say my excitement levels are sky high at this Sunday night at the start of July, which I'm not sure is the right time for it to be. But I'm very much looking forward to 4 weeks' time when we kick off against Kilmarnock and really getting underway. And as soon as we reach that, games will be thick and fast all the way through to Christmas, and we'll really see what this team is made of. So really looking forward to that one. Okay, we'll round off the podcast there. JB, thank you very much for joining us.
No, pleasure. And looking forward to the start of the season now.
Absolutely. And John, thank you very much for joining us. A very accomplished debut with TII, and delighted to have you on board, and looking forward to seeing you on again soon.
I really appreciate it. Cheers.
And thank you very much, everyone, for listening. Please remember to like the video if you've enjoyed the content. Please remember to subscribe to the TII YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your podcasts. It really does help us, and it really helps you as well, because every time we go live or upload a podcast, you'll get a wee notification so you're aware. In terms of what's coming up the rest of the week, both Ross and Kieran were in attendance at the Rangers Media Day last week, so we've got some content from interviews with Kieran Glenn Dowell coming tomorrow, and then Dujon Sterling later on in the week as well. So keep your eyes on the YouTube channel for that. We've also got Kyle and the team coming up on Wednesday night to talk about all the latest transfer rumours. I'm sure there'll be many more making their way onto social media well before Wednesday night. So they'll be talking about that as well. But thank you very much, everyone, for listening. And until next time, goodbye.